marching band. For your halftime entertainment, we celebrate the 43-year reign of the speed metal kings, Metallica. With 9 Grammy Awards and 14 nominations, 38 concert tours worldwide, and 11 studio albums that span 4 decades, the Titans of Thrash remain the standard by which all other metal is measured. We begin with a 1984 classic from their second album, For Whom the Bell Tolls, followed by the 1992 tour anthem, Wherever I May Roam. And then, let's turn down the house and light up the stage with the Auburn University Marching Band and their show, Metallica.
It's Sunday evening once again, and that means it's time for another live recording of the Auburn Experience podcast, episode 105 coming your way. And certainly, if you're watching live, stay tuned for the Q&A portion after the show. But let's get into the podcast, episode 105, right now. David Housel described it best. We are living the whole of the Auburn experience. You can quantify it, you can qualify it through a variety of methods: time, people, places, and things. And at its heart, at its core, it is all about Auburn sports, Auburn culture, and the Auburn family. And an easier way to say it, if it's orange and blue, it's what we do. So thank you for joining us in what we do today for the Auburn Experience. Episode 105. I am your host, Kyle Loomis, alongside co-host, as always, Austin Scott. Welcome back, sir.
Thank you. War Eagle to you, Kyle. War Eagle to our viewers, listeners, and everyone alike. Hope you had a great week, sir.
I had a great week. It's the Christmas season after all on this shot particularly. You'll see it better in the Q&A portion.
Lights, yeah.
There's lights. There's Auburn Santa here. There's other things. I've got some other things downstairs that I've been trying to figure out how I can put them in the set to make it even more Christmassy in here. What do we got to do to get you some Auburn decorations in there? I mean, you got enough cool things.
I need something. I don't have anything. We have some Auburn ornaments they're already in their rightful places.
Well, that's fair.
Yeah, I mean, I don't have anything. I need to figure out how to spruce something up back here.
I'm thinking a little garland with, like some orange and blue garland. What do they call it? Well, hey, we've had this. Okay, well, quick debate. I know this isn't Auburn related, but we're going to do this anyway. I have forever called tinsel the shiny stuff that you stretch across the tree. That's tinsel. But Jessica, my wife, debates that tinsel is the stuff that you sprinkle on trees and stuff like that. What say you?
I truthfully don't know, but if you had asked me what is tinsel, I would have said what you agree with.
Thank you
But
so much.
Here's the problem. We are both men, and decorating is normally not at the forefront of our expertise.
What are you doing?
I will sympathize with you, but that does not say anywhere close to that we are correct.
You were so close to helping me, and you had to go and say that. All right. Well, I was going to utilize that and show that to my wife later, but no longer. I will still call it tinsel. Anyway, I will want you to have some orange and blue tinsel back there, something like that. You can work on it down the line, but you already got a good backdrop. Let's jump into it. Lots to talk about, as we always do. 2 main topics coming up, but certainly let's open up with Auburn potpourri, all the other news that we want to at least touch on, and we're gonna have to kind of prioritize here. So let's start with this one. Probably the biggest news outside of the big topics this week was the announcement that we have a new soccer coach. Was it like less than a week too, Austin, between the retirement and this announcement? So something tells me things were being discussed and planned and there was a process that was already in place behind all of this. Is that too far of an assumption for me to make?
No. Well, look, you don't want to be caught blindsided if you're John Cohen. And so I think he had some thoughts in place and some contingencies already going. And I'm sure he and Coach Hoppe were in communication before the rest of us were aware. But, and it doesn't hurt that it's a gentleman from Mississippi State where John Cohen has plenty of connections still. So yeah, really quick process, really quick turnaround, but for it to be quick, it sure looks like a good one.
Yes, James Armstrong, former now, but was the current Mississippi State head coach, who previously was our assistant coach and was even elevated up to that title we've discussed a lot in a lot of sports, the associate head coach title, which is like the last title you can get before it's time for you to move on to become a head coach, which he did. So there's familiarity there. It's from the coaching tree of Coach Karen Hoppe in a time where we are losing that seniority leadership of Coach Karen Hoppe and what she's provided for this program and stability and success over so many years. This makes a lot of sense on that front, but it also makes sense, because you talked about it. Our AD came from Mississippi State. He hired him over there, bring him back on over here. And this isn't just one of those, like, I want to say nepotism. That's not necessarily nepotism, but this is one of those scenarios where this is a guy who's doing great things at Mississippi State too. So frankly, I was shocked with the quickness of it, but I was not shocked with this hire because it makes so much sense for Auburn. And I think we're setting ourselves up to not even miss a beat. I'm going to step out there and say we do not even miss a beat next year. Is that too big a bold prediction?
I don't think so. I think I've talked with a few people who are more connected with the Auburn soccer program than I am, and they seem to think this could be a hire that takes Auburn, like, certainly on continuing on the course they're on, but maybe even elevate it with some fresh ideas. Certainly, like you said, has had a lot of success at Mississippi State. I want to say is their winningest coach. And now we'll return to the Plains. So saw he already got a commit too. I think
yes. Grace Ivy, I believe it is. I do not know her position, but that was just another
transfer from A&M. So SEC experience. So he's working already. He was at a celebrity letter today, I believe, at the Auburn basketball game. So they're here. They're glad to be back on the Plains, and we're happy to have them.
Listen, the Auburn family always comes back together, and it's always great when it does. So happy to have Coach Armstrong here, and we're excited to talk about him in upcoming episodes.
Yes.
Next news story I've got for you today, and it's a little bit of a sad one, but this is silly season. This is transfer portal season in college football, even though, some people didn't pony up in cash and make the make the playoff or anything like that. We're here focused on the transfer portal. And obviously this news, as we talked about last week, you're going to get people transferring out. Hank Brown, after refuting initial reports last week that he was going to go into the transfer portal, has decided he will enter it when it opens tomorrow, I believe. We're doing this on a Sunday evening, but that is the report. And I think the confirmation from him. I guess two questions, Austin. Are you shocked with the decision ultimately, or are you shocked with like the reversal in a sense?
People felt very confident last week in their own reporting about Hank entering. I don't know if maybe it just wasn't something he wanted out there quite yet. So I'm not really shocked by it happening or the reversal, just because I think we've been leading up to this. I do find it a little strange when we talk about the signing day press conference that Coach Freeze kind of talked about the quarterback room and talked about Hank being there, that this is happening. But maybe there's been conversations about what they're looking for next year in the portal, and Hank saying he wants his own thing. I don't know. We're not privy to that information. We won't be. But I definitely think there can be a spot for Hank somewhere. Oh, yeah. His maybe in state. His high school coach is up the road. So
you said it, not me.
We will see how that goes. But we certainly wish Hank the best. I think he showed some bright moments here, and I'm sure he'll do good things at the next step. But that opens a room, like you said. The transfer portal opens tomorrow officially. That does not mean conversations haven't already been happening. Mm-hmm. Don't misconstrue that at all.
Right.
But it opens tomorrow, and you called it silly season. It only gets sillier from here, folks.
Oh boy, does it. Yeah. Obviously now with 3 spots vacated, one being filled by Deuce Knight coming in, who we'll talk about in a little bit, that if you're going to have 4 roster spots for quarterbacks, that's 2 potential transfer quarterbacks. I'm not saying that's going to happen, but I do think that you could make that logical progression and not be anything. One last thing. Sorry, this is just a personal thing. Are you saying when people, the reports came out that Hank was going to transfer and ended up not being true at the time, but then ended up being, the story kind of changed a little bit. Are you saying people can get things wrong, but it was initially true to begin with? Is that what you're saying?
I think that is a possibility there. Yeah, I think that it's happened before, doesn't it?
Seems like something like that happened before, and it went a different way. Anyway, I'm gonna leave it at that. That's
pretty similar.
That's a deep cut for E2C Network people. Different standards, I guess, for people and things like that. Anyway, we'll leave it at that. let's jump into this little bit of news. This is some basketball announcer news. I do want to mention this. We have mentioned this a little bit previously, but today at the game with Richmond was the honoring of Coach Sonny Smith, who is obviously a legendary coach for Auburn basketball, has been a longtime partner, friend, and just the best analyst alongside Andy Burcham for basketball, just for his ranting and ravings over refs and things like that. We've already announced that he announced his retirement from that officially, but he was honored today. So great, obviously a great win, which we'll talk about later. But to be able to celebrate Sonny, that's a great thing. And it's just hitting me now, Austin, that this is official. No more funny Sonny ever. He's retired. He gets to enjoy life now. Not have to worry about working. He can just be a basketball fan now.
That's right, and he certainly will. There will still be plenty of funny Sonny moments if you get to sit next to it or near him in the Neville Arena, and I'm sure he'll make it loud enough where there's plenty to hear. But officially, kind of the closing of the curtain for Sonny Smith next to Andy Burcham. Like you said, we knew it was coming. It was discussed, back at the beginning of the year, but a sad, bittersweet moment for him and his family. But I'm glad he'll still be around. And it was very good of Auburn to honor him today. Very cool of Andy Burcham to give him the memorable ball, and very cool. So I really, really hope we still see shots of him or him attending in Neville Arena regularly this year.
I want to see some shots of him giving what for to the refs, every single time, and tell them
standing
up and just having some very good euphemisms and metaphors for ways that he feels about referees. So that'll be fun to watch. But congratulations to Coach Sonny Smith. The other announcer news for basketball is on the women's side, and this is kind of a cool thing today. I wasn't aware this was going down, but Carson McFadden made her debut for women's basketball as an analyst, I believe, on the radio side of things, alongside Britt Bowen. And if you know anything about the women's basketball program, Carson has been with the team the last 4 years, I believe, and started as a walk-on, earned a scholarship. I remember watching that moment online.
Yeah.
Became an integral part of the team in all aspects, playing a lot. And then obviously moved on, as many people do after their playing times, but is coming right back. To me, this is just your quintessential feel-good Auburn story. Someone who worked their way, earned their time, earned their respect, regardless of whether it was starting time or not, but got out there on the floor a lot for Auburn, is now kind of completing that full circle of from player to some aspect of still being involved with the program. You got to love stories like this.
Absolutely. Very, very cool moment. It's always a cool moment when a school, especially Auburn, has a former player tied to that role. But with Carson, I think it's even cooler that you get someone who was just in Johnny Harris's locker room. She was just involved in what she knows, her play style. She knows what she's wanting to accomplish, what she's asking of these current players. So what a resource for Britt Bowen and for him to be able to talk with her and ask her questions and them get a different perspective on the broadcast. So be sure, if that happens more of, I hope it does with Carson, be sure to tune in to Britt and Carson. And look, we're big on this Auburn women's basketball program. You've heard us talk about milestones a lot. This can only generate more excitement. So best of luck to Carson. Congratulations to her today.
Yeah, excited to watch the program the rest of the season because, hey, folks, it's basketball season fully now, and it's going to be fun no matter which team we're talking about. Last little bit of news that I want to talk about, and we don't get a chance to talk about this program enough, but the track and field program and the cross country, by virtue of they're basically one and the same. We are going to talk about them whenever we get a chance to. I don't think it was today, actually, but this week they had a meet up in Boston. And it was the Sharon Collier Danville season opener. I think this used to be called the Boston Invitational, if I'm not mistaken, or the Boston Opener or something like that. I could be wrong. Anyway, the point is we broke not one, but two of the exact same record on the men's and the women's side. And I'm going to do my best to pronounce their names. On the men's side, we got Nixon Chebil. It breaks the school record in the men's 5,000 meter with a time of 13 minutes, 38.16 seconds. And then Brenda Jepchirchir broke it on the women's side and the freshman record, mind you, in the indoor 5,000 meter, 15 minutes, 35.36 seconds. So both a men's and a women's 5,000. Have you ever watched the 5,000 meter run, Austin?
I have not in its entirety. It's very long.
It's tiring to watch.
Yeah.
imagine how tiring it is to actually run it.
Yes.
I think Jessica ran the 3,000 when she was in
Gracious.
track and field. And so that's
No,
just
thank you.
no thank you whatsoever. I'm thinking back to some other Auburn great names that have been here recently, like Joyce Cameli, I believe, did really well in this. So it's just great to see another. We talk about milestones when you're talking about like women's basketball, chipping those away under a new regime. And we're starting to see that now with Leroy Burrell it's just cool to see on one meet, the same event on both sides, men's and women's. We break the school records and do great things there. So just a really cool note to give you an update about how they're doing. It's really well, by the way, if you're curious about all those things. Quick rundown for everybody. Just some final news to keep in mind. Women's basketball doing really well right now. Took a game at Virginia in the ACC SEC Challenge and just won a game against UAB at home. A little bit of a nail biter, but we took care of it. All-American freshman team nominations, or I shouldn't say nominations, but being named to it, Cam Coleman and Jay Crawford. And we'll talk about this during the basketball. The Duke season ticket holders got a notice sent to them because of something Auburn did. So we'll talk about that in just a little bit. First big topic tonight, though, Austin. It's the thing that everybody loves every year. I don't care. It's like Christmas now came early. It used to come late because it was I'm sorry. I'm trying not to rant here. They need to figure out where the flip signing day is actually supposed to be. Okay. Like, is this early? Is this the national signing day? Are we even doing anything in February anymore? Moreover, I don't know. Figure out what this is all supposed to be. I know the coaches are just as frustrated with it because it's all crazy. But basically, this past week, this Wednesday was treated as National Signing Day for college football. And boy, was it successful. Just to give you a quick highlight, another top 10 class across all the major rating systems for Coach Hugh Freeze. If you need any reason to make you feel confident in where we're heading as a program under Hugh Freeze, you look right here. And I will again say it. It's not just about the rankings and the stars, because it doesn't matter what you come in with. It matters what you leave with. But what is being shown is that you're getting these high speculative prospects in, getting them on the field, and they're showing out early and often. So that's the big takeaway that you should be having. I'll give you the full list, but Austin, I would like some opening thoughts from you on your impressions about the success, failure, or just the overall impressions of signing day for Auburn in this 2025 class.
Well, I'm glad you put it like that, because I think it's important for people to recognize that this signing class was a success. It was not a failure. A top 10 class is a success. Now, could it have been better? Were there possibilities that would have made it top 5, top 2, top overall class? Absolutely. There's always those possibilities. And those are not guarantees. That look, we are dealing with 17 to 18-year-old children. These are not guarantees no matter what happens until they are on campus, let's be honest. But it is a success for it being a top 10 class, because that is what you need in this conference and with Auburn's schedule year to year to stack those up in order to get back to where they should be competing. That is not my diagnosis. That is straight from the head coach's mouth, and others around the conference who understand that have been doing that for longer. We see where they're at. We would like Auburn to get there. So overall, I think it's definitely a success. I'm happy with it. Now, of course, I wish it could have gone even better for Auburn. I always want Auburn's success to be first and foremost, but it is a successful class to be able to keep the guys that they got, keep them away from people who wanted them, and address needs. And you'll see plenty of needs addressed once you go through the list here.
Oh, absolutely. We got a long list to go through here, but let's do that. I'll start talking about those guys for you. And I love that you reiterated that point, that I think some people get focused on what you didn't get and lose focus of what you did get here. And this is a top 10 class, folks. So you should be very, very happy, very proud with what was accomplished by this team, the staff. And here we go. Let's roll through them right now. I'm going to read them actually as they happen. I loved how Auburn put them out this year, the time with which they came out. So just sit tight for a second as we work through 25 different signees in this class. Punter, John Allen McGuire. Offensive line, Tay Buster. Tight end, Hollis Davidson. Cale Ellis, offensive line. Jacoby Ward, offensive line. Ryan Gea, tight end. Jared Smith, defensive line. Elijah Melendez, by the way, that man's a behemoth of a human being if you've ever looked at him. You remember when we put that picture up awkwardly during the show?
It was very awkward. We
It was
made a
very
friend
awkward.
of ours feel very awkward too.
Elijah Melendez, linebacker. We've got, this just threw me off. He's listed as new boy Fagans in this, but Anquan Fagans, safety. Eric Winters, safety. Malik Autry, defensive line. Deuce Knight, quarterback. Antonio Coleman, defensive line. Duke or Eric Smith, wide receiver. Alvin Henderson, running back. That was Derek Smith, sorry. Eric Smith, his brother, wide receiver. Broderick Scholl, offensive line. Jordan Crawford, defensive line. We're almost done, folks. JJ Falk or Jacaleb Falk, linebacker. Sam Turner, wide receiver. Blake Woodby, cornerback. Bryce Dees, linebacker. Darian Smith, defensive line. Donovan Starr, cornerback. And Devin Williams, cornerback. Whew, we made it through, folks. Okay. We talked about how we would discuss this. We're not going to have time to get into every single one. We're going to try to do kind of like a top 5 of sorts. So however that means to you, Austin, whether it's your favorite ones, the favorite role fills, just give me the first one that you want to talk about, whether it is the 5 or however you want to phrase it. It's your top 5 list from this class that you want to discuss. You have the floor.
Yeah, I mean, I think, are you good if we just trade 1 for 1 here?
Let's do 1 for 1. Let's do it. I love it.
I'm going to take the easy one, but because it just makes too much sense. So sorry.
You would.
I'm going to take Deuce Knight. I mean, I think that, we heard all up until the last month of the year, there was talk on is he going to Ole Miss? Is he going to visit someone else? Is Alabama getting involved? All these things. And I think that to lock Deuce down and I'm not saying Deuce is the most talented player in this class. I'm not saying he's the most highly rated player in this class. All those things could be true, but there's the quarterback of your class tends to be the centerpiece, right?
Right.
And I think that everyone wants to know it's helpful for guys who you're trying to also have joined the class, and also guys who are in the class to be able to sell other people on who the quarterback is. So to have him, to lock him in, and for it to be kind of the talented quarterback that Auburn fans have been hoping to get out of the high school ranks, and maybe we see him down the line in a couple of years, prove that on the field as well. That has to be important. So I think having Deuce is definitely a major, major factor that was a win for Auburn on signing day.
You would take the easy one.
I did.
I dislike you for that. Since you didn't cheat, but you took the easy route. I am going to cheat for my first one. And because these two came together at the very end of the day, and I think they were the nice end cap to everything. One of them was a bit of a question. The other one was just a matter of timing. I think he was the last one scheduled to do it for the day. But I'm talking about the two cornerbacks at the end of the day, Donovan Starr and Devin Williams. Now, why this is important is one of the misses, if you want to call it that, that was out there for Auburn was Naheem, or is it Naheem?
Naheem, I believe.
Naheem. Offered was out there. Looked like Auburn had a good shot at him as the day progressed. It seemingly didn't seem like that was going to take place. If that had taken place, it looked like Donovan Starr had been reevaluating his options, going somewhere else. And then we're all speculating. We can't prove these things. We're just walking out logic here.
Right.
Because suddenly he wanted to actually make his decision that day. And then you throw that on top of Devin Williams. So you'd had a day where there were some of the quote unquote big misses, but then you had a nice into the day of kind of locking down your cornerback room, your defensive back room. And it was kind of that last exciting thing. In fact, Donovan Starr commitment came in as Hugh Freeze is doing his press conference, which was really fun to watch because he got really, really happy about that one. Because it was like, you could tell it was that nice check mark that he needed on the day for this class. So for me, that's a cheat. I'm taking, if you want to call it an honorable mention, alongside Devin Williams, kind of in capping everything. Everybody that had committed and stayed committed through signing day signed on National Signing Day. That is a big win for me. So that's my first option there.
I think that raises a lot of good points because corner was definitely kind of one that Auburn looked like they had a lot of momentum in. And then also kind of as things progressed throughout the day and also the week, it was kind of like, is Auburn going to be okay at corner? So to end the day well, is good to see that. I think they also got one of the Maryland kids, Blake Woodby. I think they're calling a corner too. So ended up being a really good day for corners. In a similar vein, I'm going to say the defensive line. I think Jordan Crawford is really, really good.
God, he's
but
huge.
he's a massive person. But when you put him with Antonio Coleman and Jared Smith and Malik Autry, those guys make a really good defensive line class, I think. Especially when you think about that, the trenches are the most important part, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I think when you can keep those guys, because all those guys are big guys, all those guys are talented guys. I mean, big in stature, but also big as in impactful. So to have that group kind of stay together in a similar vein with the corner, Justice Terry was one that I never really thought was going to be one Auburn was going to get. He ended up committing to Texas, but to have that unit be consistently good across the four of them is really big. I love that Malik Autry and Antonio Coleman were ones that stayed in this class. Both guys who either were committed a long time or had a lot of drama. But at the end of the day, the last few months, it's been all Auburn. So just really love that those guys are in the boat. I think the staff's really excited about those two.
So you named a lot in there. So was Jordan Crawford your one, or did you do the cheat again of picking?
I probably cheated, but I'll pick Jordan Crawford.
Jordan Crawford. You did kind of cheat there a little bit worse than I did. But I'll let you slide since I started the cheat.
We're going to name all these guys by the end.
We're just going to name them all. I'll go here. I'm going to go here because I am not a big person about the recruiting anymore, the recruiting process. When they're committed, when they're signed, that's when I focus in on them because that's the only thing that truly matters, to be honest with you. But I love talking about regional stories or where these guys come from. I don't know if you know where I'm heading with this, but we always talk about Auburn. One of the big stories is Auburn dominating in the state this cycle. Yes. And they did a great job at that. Georgia, Florida being those other two primary ones, and then the rest of your neighboring Southeast. Auburn goes out to Oklahoma and snags them an offensive tackle in Broderick Scholl out there. So not only is it fulfilling a position that is always of need and is still a constant soreness for Auburn fans at times and the Auburn team, just not having that unit cohesively be consistent. But going out to Oklahoma and snagging someone from the clutches out there, which technically I guess is SEC country now with Oklahoma.
It is now.
That's a big thing to me because I love talking about that. Auburn needs to extend its arm. If I can cheat a little bit here and talk about that Maryland pipeline that's been created, same kind of thought process there. But to me, a position of need, a region that we don't go to a whole lot, maybe more so now that pipeline has begun with someone out there having access to it. That's a big story for me. So Broderick Scholl is my number 2, I guess, if you want to put it in the list.
So who is was Donovan Starr officially your number 1, or was it?
I cheated and it said Donovan Starr and Devin Williams together because they kind of cap-ended everything at this almost the bang together. But Donovan Starr, if you want me to.
So you have 2.
Yes.
Okay.
I have 2 officially.
I have like 7 unofficially.
Oh Lord.
I'm going to say my third one is going to be Anquan / New Boy. Didn't know that was his nickname.
I'd heard it before.
Would love to hear Rick Smith say New Boy Fagans next year in Jordan Stadium.
New Boy Fagans.
I guess they announced their own now, but when he makes a pick 6, then Rick Smith can. But mine's going to be him. I think I talked about, I don't know if Deuce is the most talented, is the most, highly rated. I think Anquan Fagans is the most talented. I think he is the highly rated. I think he will be one that we probably see next year play a lot. DJ Durkin and Hugh Freeze are not what's my word? Not ashamed, not shy about playing their freshmen. And I think you will see Anquan Fagans play at Auburn. I think he's just got the skills. I think he's got the look of what DJ Durkin likes in his safety. Same with Eric Winters, but I'm sticking with Fagans. And I think that he is the one that will have the most impact the earliest, if that makes sense.
No, I like that pick there. He's one that they all felt like big moments at certain points in the recruiting process and the recruiting story of this class. But I think his was kind of that one when he committed that started that big swing for Auburn. It's like, okay, they're going to do this again. Like at least have a really strong case for the top 10. At that time, they started pushing into the top 5 and stuff like that. And we're very close to that if some different things had worked out in different ways. But Anquan is certainly one that should earn a lot of respect and turn a lot of heads. I'm going to go a different route for my third one here, and it is a position of need thing, and it's the very first one of the day. John Allen McGuire, punter. Listen, I'm a kicker by trade. Got to value these things. Everybody dismisses them. Everybody dismisses the kicker and the punter. If you don't have these things right, as we learned this year, you're going to suffer. So, with the very sad departure of the wonderful wonder from down under, I'm so happy that we found somebody, in a local kid coming out of that pipeline up there at Thompson. Is it Thompson or is it?
That's correct. Yeah,
Thompson. I had him right. It was like 3 or 4 of them that came from Thompson. Snagging him with a few of his teammates is great. But you got to lock down the punter position every 3 or 4 years, and we're working through that on the kicker side of things. But hey, listen, if the health situation still continues with McPherson, if there are still issues with the other two, maybe we can try him there too. I don't know. I'm just happy to see us, lock down someone as we have the next one move off into the sunset. But gonna miss the wonder from down under.
Yeah, we are, and I believe I saw. I do not know his name off the top of my head, but our backup punter also decided to test the portal water. So
yes,
John Allen McGuire, he might be called upon very, very early.
Be ready. We're gonna need you.
We'll need him. So I think my fourth one is going to be Hollis Davidson III.
Okay.
Hollis we probably talked about it on an episode, but one of those guys, same with Antonio Coleman, one of those guys who decommitted and then committed back to Auburn. And then you really didn't hear about anything else after that second time committing. I think that's big. That was pursued a lot by other SEC programs. But once he got back in the boat, he stuck with his commitment. So I love to see tight ends in the boat just because they can do a lot of different things. And I think that he is a very talented one. And I always love to see guys reaffirm their commitment and love for Auburn. It just goes to show they know they made the right choice. So we're really looking forward to seeing him in an Auburn Tiger uniform.
And it's a big group of need because you're losing a lot from there. Thankfully, Brandon Frazier did announce that he's coming back, so that'll provide some leadership in that room. And then hopefully you go find maybe some extra leadership help in that position too in the transfer portal. But you got to start building up for the future. And you've got him and also Ryan, who came in this class. They're going to be really instrumental in getting the tight end room going again from the younger ranks. That's a good pick as well. Number 4 for me, I'm going to go with the family route. There's a lot of family route in here. Which one do you think I'm going to do? There's 2 options for family routes here.
The family route?
Yeah. 2 Smiths and then now there's a second Falk. Caleb Falk is coming in at linebacker. I am a sucker for these type of things when we bring family members either at the same time, different classes. I hate, for instance, that Marcus Herrick and Malik Blockton didn't get to play together for a season.
Sure.
That would have been great because I love those type of things. So I am a sucker for this. Caleb was one of the first ones, like 2 or 3 in the class to commit. So he stayed with the class, with the program. His brother's here just turning it up, Keldrick Falk. And so I'm excited about seeing them 2 out there on the field together at the linebacker position too. That is also going to be, there's a recurring story here, Austin. We got a lot of units that need to be replenished.
Yep.
JJ may have an opportunity to do that very, very quick. So that I'm going to be a sucker, a sap. The family route is my number 4 pick there.
I think that's a good one too. And we talk about silly season in the portal. Don't think there's not people trying to get in Keldrick Falk's ear. So to know that his little brother's coming, I think he loves Auburn. He likes being at Auburn, but that can only help even more.
Certainly. Yep.
Of his brother being here, staying close home. So I think my last one, I thought about going the twin route, but I'm not going to do it. That would have been just too easy for me. I'm going, it's semi easy again, but I think Alvin Henderson is going to be an incredible running back at Auburn University. Yeah. Look, that's not stepping out too far because most running backs that come to Auburn University end up being incredible running backs. But just a really talented kid, a really big kid in terms of size, but also the record books he set in the Alabama high school ranks. Looks like the part for this Auburn offense and Auburn running back. So it might be a couple of years. Let's just remember these kids are just getting their grounds and just becoming college freshmen, and all that entails outside of even football. But I think that Alvin Henderson can do a lot of things with Jarquez Hunter leaving. There's a wide gap of who's going to get the most snaps next year, and plenty of time to compete. But Alvin Henderson is who I'll close out with my top 5.
I will not be a sap, even though I want to, and pick the Twins. I am shocked that you got away, Mr. Father of 2 twins, with not picking them to talk about. And I would have given you the cheat there because that's 2 and 1. And and the fact that they have almost the exact same name, Derek and Eric. I don't know how their parents did that.
I get Brooks and Barrett confused nonstop. I can't imagine Derek, Eric.
Like, I'm not even saying like to them, like that was a bad thing, like to the parents, like, how do you not, mess that up all the time? I'm sure they did. I'm going to go one of the ones at the end. And it wasn't even a surprise, but it was one of the unknowns of the day. It was speculated that there would be someone who wasn't committed sign with the Tigers that day. A lot of predictions toward this way, defensive tackle Darian Smith. So it was another end cap today alongside how I started my list. It was a trip through the signing class. My list with Donovan Starr and Devin Williams right before that Darian Smith comes in is probably the only true unknown what would happen with that, and was more of a sure thing for Auburn, at least speculation wise. So there was a nice end cap. Defensive line certainly has a lot of young talent showing out, but you got to continue these pipelines through the offensive and defensive lines. Need to keep being replenished for nothing else than depth. So it was nice to have that nice surprise to go along with some of the pieces you already mentioned, Malik Autry and many others. So that was an exciting way to end the day. So that will be my 5th and final one.
That's a good one. I think with that one, a lot of people will say, oh, well, it's just a 3-star flip from Tennessee. And I really hate that because one, you people don't even know who's handing out these stars. Right. So stop. But also second, it's a position of need, like you said. But it's also, let's not forget who's at Tennessee is one Rodney Garner. And if he wanted him initially, then look, there's something there. So let's not forget that.
Yep. These conversations are always so much more nuanced. And if your only discussion point is how many stars someone has, like this, when I get a comment that says how many stars with these, I immediately just ignore it because that just shows me where your mindset is right there. It doesn't matter.
And I'm not disregarding the people who put in the work and this is their job to evaluate, but they're human as much as Kyle and I are. They're going to mess up. They're going to, and look, a 3-star for the grand scheme of things, they might be a 5-star for exactly what DJ Durkin wants on his defensive line. We have no idea what the exact skill set that these guys are going to work in certain places. So while I think that there's merit to some guys being more talented than others, and if you have more of those guys, then you see good results. I think that's a valid assumption to get there. Yep. Let's also just remember that different guys are different people.
Yeah. And listen, if you're going to dumb down someone's value based on stars,
it's dumb.
It's dumb. It's dumb. Just don't do it. What I will say this 9,000 more times. It doesn't matter how many stars you come in with. It matters how many you leave with. End. Over with. Said and done. 2025 class. We're not done talking about them, but that'll be our introduction to them. We're looking forward to see their futures as Auburn Tigers. Our last major topic tonight, we're going to do a full week update for you for Auburn basketball. It's been a minute since we've been able to spend lengthy time talking about them, and boy, what a week to do so. The Maui Invitational, we did get to talk about that in quite detail, but that was just like a bunch of things happening all at once. But this is a full week here. Auburn had 2 games, one on the road and one at home. We're thankfully today, as we're recording on the Sunday, celebrating a big win over a Richmond program, which should not be dismissed in any way, nearly hitting the century mark. We had 98-54, but obviously the biggest news story of the basketball week was that first ever trip to the legendary Cameron Indoor, where your Tigers do lose by the score of 84-78. But my goodness, even with one of their, I want to say, when I say poorest, I don't mean that as a shot, but their poorest games of the season. They played much better games. Still, we're in a position to win in Cameron Indoor. That cannot be stated too much. So let's start there. The week begins. You're coming off the high of the Maui Invitational. just shellacking that Auburn put on everybody after they got past Iowa State, who looks pretty good still, by the way. You got to come back and go to Cameron Indoor. Austin, the history of this place, of this program. You want to talk about being legitimized as a blue blood or a new blue blood, you've got to go here and try to have success or at least be respected. And I think the Tigers walked away with the respect of the Duke Blue Devils for what they almost accomplished there.
Yeah, I do too. Leading up to it, it's definitely one that, Auburn does not have the pedigree, does not have the history that Duke has in basketball. And to go into that arena, it's like Bruce Pearl always says, he was very grateful just to have that challenge, to get to see what that's like for our players to experience that. We've talked about this since it was announced that this was going to be a really hard game for Auburn to win. That was before we knew how talented they were, but it was still the same to be said going into this week. I think it was really awesome for our players to get to experience that outside of just even the basketball game. I saw one person even say, this will probably be the closest these Auburn players that will experience a arena like this, of like the one they usually play at in Neville Arena. Just like a similar atmosphere, a similar fan base that's right on top of you, a similar arena in terms of size. So just really cool experience no matter what for Auburn. I really wish somehow I'd been able to make it, but I have
not in the budget.
I cannot choose which twin goes to college, so they both have to go to college. But just super, super cool for Auburn. And then in the basketball part of it, this team, which I think is one of the best, if not the best offenses in college basketball right now, almost puts 80 on Duke in Cameron Indoor. And maybe had some opportunities taken away from them they shouldn't. We won't get into all of it. I don't have to I'll do all that. But just a really neat opportunity for Auburn, and then handled it well. I don't see how you can say that they did not handle this handle the atmosphere, handle the momentum or the moment and the experience incredibly well. It's one thing to say we're going up there to experience it, but then to go on and play as well as they did is another thing. So really cool.
Yeah, and it wasn't their best game. Let's be very clear. And that's not excuse making. That's just reality. You can look at some of the stats. If you ever want to watch our post-game shows, we dive into those in great detail. And you can see Auburn had not played its best in a lot of its key areas, but we're still in position to win there. And I love that you pointed out that this is very similar to Neville and what people experience when they come to Auburn, because that was designed in part with the inspiration of Cameron Indoor. So Auburn got a taste of its own medicine in a sense and experienced what that's like on the other end. And we walked away with a lot of respect there. I want to talk about the dynamic between arguably two of the best players, if not the two best in college basketball, Cooper Flagg and Janai Broome. One's a freshman, I believe, and the other is a fifth-year senior. I was looking forward to compare this. If I remember both of their stat lines, it was very comparable. Janai had a great game. So did Cooper Flagg. I think if you looked at all the stats, you might give a slight edge in that category to Janai. Maybe a little bit of experience is what led to that. I personally felt like it was an even match, and they didn't play each other, two different positions and stuff like that. But if you're going to talk about questions of player of the year at this current juncture of a very early season, I think I walked away not thinking one was really higher than the other. Did you have any similar or different views of that?
I thought Cooper Flagg, you definitely know about him when you're going to play Duke. I think most since he committed to Duke have said he's going number one in the draft.
Yeah.
But I mean that is every freshman is. I mean there's a freshman every year that is going to be the number one pick before they even started college now. That's just him this year. So I think that when you go into this game, they knew that would be the case. He was certainly going to get his, right? And he did. I thought he made some incredible plays. I was very impressed with him. I like what you said about Janai's experience. I think it showed. I think he got off to a rough start and even just did some things that were uncharacteristic of him, just missed some. His touch was a little bit off. You could chalk that up to a million things, whether it's a new arena or just the night. So I think that stat line definitely could have been better. I'm not saying that Janai didn't do enough. He played like the best player in the country, like he has every night this season. But I thought they held their own. I think I'm not going to be this person that rags on the refs. I'm really not going to be. I wasn't this.
Oh, you're going to be. Just let it go. Just do it.
I think that because of Cooper Flagg's notoriety, he got the calls that you are going to think he's going to get with people knowing him. I don't think Janai Broom gets those calls. And then, of course, we're in Cameron Indoor, too. If we play this game in Neville Arena tomorrow, which would be freaking awesome, Janai Broom's probably getting some calls that are a little ticky-tack. So I think that helped Flagg. I really do. I think it helped Duke. But at the end of the day, that's like you said, two of the best players, if not the best players in college basketball. What a treat to get to see them go against each other.
Oh, we've said this already a couple times this season. Auburn has played March Madness type of competition and games. They've done that several times now. Iowa State, Duke are perfect examples of that. So it was a great way. The final thing about this Duke game, and I just love this.
This is the the best part.
This is when you are a legitimate conversation piece in college basketball. When the Duke, I guess, athletic office,
the athletic director,
had to send out a notice to season ticket holders, essentially, and correct me if I'm wrong, Austin, saying, hey, y'all sold way too many of your tickets to these Auburn fans, and they showed up and showed out, and it put us in peril. So am I leaving anything out of the story? Is that essentially the essence of it?
No, he basically, we're not going to read it verbatim, but he basically sent out an email to season ticket holders saying, that's unacceptable. And that is not how we do our Duke basketball home games.
Yep.
Said there were way too many Auburn fans, and just, I mean, you can't tell me that enough. That's just something
feed it to me. Just
feed it to me
so much.
That is not something I guarantee you Duke fans are having to get many emails of. I was with my dad the night of the game, and he has a group text from a bunch of friends in college. And they were sent, a couple of them were there and were sending texts and saying, it's a pretty good atmosphere. This is legit, all this stuff. And I said, ask them what, like, a percentage, like, what's the percentage of Auburn fans? And one of them sent back probably 15%. Maybe that's a little conservative. Man, though, when they got out to 13-2, you could hear it. And I can only imagine. I wish we had when Auburn football does the picture at midfield, and it's like you can zoom in and find yourself.
Yeah.
I wish we had that of the exact moment when it was 13-2, but I could find the Duke athletic director and the Auburn crowd is roaring. I bet he's just sitting there like,
he's
what
fuming,
is happening?
man.
You've got to be kidding me.
This is an embarrassment because
he's typing up the email right then.
Right. Well, it's an embarrassment because if you're going to grandstand as a blue blood and say Auburn doesn't belong in the conversation, then prove it. You did it on the court by beating us in your home court. That credit to you there. But don't sit here and say that the fans don't have a reason to say that our program, by competition level, but also fan support, doesn't deserve to be in this conversation. You just proved it. Your athletic director had to send out a notice, a memorandum of understanding to the whole company, essentially. And boy, did they get a talking to, essentially. It was great to see.
And I'm sure coming into the year, let's be honest, the Duke people are probably not looking at Auburn in the way we're looking at Duke. Rightfully so. They've got the history and all this. But, man, coming after that Maui game, I wonder if some of them are like, oh, did we already sell those tickets? That we should have not have done that.
Yeah. It's just be careful sometimes. And Auburn fans, remember this one day. We're selling out everything. Richmond today was another sellout. So let's keep it up. Let's keep let's not have our athletic have to send out
notices. We'll come take over an arena though.
We will. Listen, what have we always said here on this show? If you put Auburn somewhere, Auburn people will show up. I don't know if we're talking about Cameron Indoor, we're talking about a bowl game, we're talking about a semi-pro basketball thing, and people are going to go crazy for it because you put Auburn on and you put Auburn people together. Bring Auburn and you will make some money. That's the point we're trying to make here. Or, well, I guess they made money, the Duke people that sold their tickets, because
they did. They made quite a bit of money based on what I was
seeing. Do you think they're probably like, yeah, you can send all the emails you want to me. I made a pretty penny on this.
No kidding.
All right. Let's briefly talk about the game today. What I think is just as important as big wins like we had in Maui. Also, super important how you respond after losses. And you think about the emotional ride from winning Maui, close loss to Duke, nearly pulling off the upset. You're coming home, yes, against an opponent you should win against, but you could anticipate a possible emotional letdown, even being in the Nev. Today, Auburn dominates Richmond by 40+ points and does it in fine. Janai doesn't even have to hardly do a thing all day. I mean, he gets double figures in points, but it's a pedestrian day for him by Janai's standards. But everybody else shows out. That was the big thing today on the show, the post-game show, Austin, is I always ask the question, who's your player of the game? And we really couldn't come up with anything because there were so many opportunities to make that case for CBM, for Ja'Kai Howard at times. Talk about him in a second. Several others that you could have talked. It was just a great response by the team, I thought, against Richmond when they had every opportunity just to kind of, it's Richmond. We're going to win.
Yeah, no, I think you're exactly right. I didn't get to watch a lot of the game with it just being falling inside in church area and things like that. But it felt like that. It felt like as I was kind of recapping and reading, it was like everybody kind of did something. And I look up and there's still 98 points. It's like everybody did a good bit of things. So just I think that has been the trend of this Auburn basketball team all year. It's like it's going to be somebody, but we can't tell you who. Like Janai is going to be Janai, and the National Player of the Year is going to be him. But everybody else is going to contribute, and some might do it more than others. Some might decide to pass the ball a little bit better this game. Some might decide to score it. But this team is balanced. This team is unselfish, and they're playing like an elite team. You got to have a lot of that to be a great team.
Yep. And if you don't believe that they're unselfish, you need to start monitoring their assist numbers, because there's a big differential between Auburn and the teams that they're playing almost every single night, and it shows. It's what's kept them in some of the games that they've had some trouble in. The storyline for me for this game is Ja'Kai Howard. He's already played in a game previous since the incident on the plane. Yeah, let's just go ahead and start that back up again. But this was his first big game back in getting significant and early minutes. And boy, what he got known for in preseason was his slam dunks. And he had one about that a lot of people were saying needs to be a SportsCenter top 10. I don't know when they bring those out on Sunday evenings, but maybe he got onto that. I don't know. But nice to see him back out there. Jaheim Hudson, also involved in that incident, has been out previously at the Maui Invitational. He got in today as well. So both guys, I think, is back into the fold. I want to say the rotation, but at least getting some minutes again to start getting used to being part of that, because we're going to need them. I mean, both of those, two different skill sets.
Yes.
We saw in the Maui where Jaheim had to come in because we had so much foul trouble with big guys. Well, you need a spark guy like Ja'Kai who can just come down there and slam it down. So I was so happy to see Howard back out there on the floor.
Yeah, absolutely. I liked that going into it. Coach Pearl kind of said, Ja'Kai's going to have some meaningful minutes today. It's first time just because of the difficulty of the schedule. We can let him go out there and kind of do what he wants to do and see what he's got. I think that it was very cool post game to see Coach Pearl bring up that Chad kind of voluntarily gave up some of his minutes so Ja'Kai could play. And that I think there will be some people who are like, oh, that's not competitive, or that's not very good to think of Richmond.
Did somebody seriously say that? Have you seen that already?
No, but I can't doubt anything anymore.
I was about to get very upset.
I can't even possibly unfathom. I could see it, in today's world. Anyway, I think that it's very cool though that was done, because for all the things that was said about those two players with the plane incident, they're kids. Right. And they're trying to play basketball, and they're trying to make their dreams come true. And so for him to get his opportunity today and then make the most of it, I think that should show you the continuity of this team is bigger than just, hey, they had a plane fight.
Yeah. And folks, as much as some of you get frustrated with CBM for his, I don't know how to describe it. Antics and energy. Remember, the kid does things like this, and he doesn't have to. But that also shows you a guy that's very secure with his place and role in the team.
Agreed.
And that role is a pretty big role, by the way. I mean, he was close to being the leading scorer today. And he's been very consistent in doing that. So,
the physicist, you mean?
The do you like that name?
It's a little long, but it's okay.
Look,
I don't think it'll stick.
You teed me up like you liked that name, and here I thought I finally had a nickname.
I thought it was unique. I thought it was original. I don't think it'll stick, but I'm willing to try it.
The physicist. Come on, folks. Let's get this going for Ja'Kai Howard, because he just defies physics with some of these dunks that he did. Or I'm sorry, not Ja'Kai.
I thought it was CBM.
CBM is going to be the physicist, I think. And I think he would agree with that because, we all want to sound super smart. And when you have physicists to your name, it makes, I don't know.
Kyle,
you guys tell me.
Going into today, I was going to complain about how this was on a Sunday and it's weird and but then I thought about, you probably loved that we had a doubleheader of men's and women's basketball and that people could have the day to experience both. And like you've always tried to say, we should have all these other moments where all these sports get their own kind of whole day. So
you must
did you
enjoy
it?
You must not want to end this episode because you had to bring that up. Yes, I enjoyed the heck out of this.
I'm glad.
Now, I will again. I think it's better served to have the women leading into the men, and I think you could flip flop that. Too. Yeah. But debate for another day. I think this is how college basketball should be done. I think it would create a game day like atmosphere, a way to do tickets. I think somehow to get everybody to stay over like they kind of did today. You could stay for that as long as you weren't sitting as season ticket holders for the women's and they got their reserved seats. I'm telling you, if you start doing this more often, you're going to get some atmospheres on college campuses that are going to be not college football level, but pretty fun. Coupling that with some other weekend things. All right, I'm gonna shut up because we've been going way too long. But you're the one that brought it up.
I just wanted to give you your floor.
I love that concept, and I'm happy that we did it today. All right. That's episode 105 for the Auburn Experience podcast. If you want to keep up with me, do so on X at Kyle Loomis24. Where can they find you?
Yeah, at Austin G. Scott, X, Instagram. I'm there.
Thanks for hanging out with us this evening and hanging out to talk about the Auburn Experience. Until we talk to you again, War Eagle.
War Eagle.
All right, folks, that's the show.
That's a long one, baby.
It was. I really looked at our time and I was like, I got to get Austin out of here. And so I was ready to wrap the show up, and then you had to bring that up. So
I was sitting there waiting on it, and I couldn't get it in before we started talking. So,
all right, sir. I know you got to run, but thanks for hanging out with us tonight.
No problem. War Eagle.
War Eagle. All right, folks, you're stuck with me for the rest of the night. Well, for the last few minutes that we have here. I will stay on. It's already 10 o'clock on the live stream portion, and normally that's when we wrap up. But we did a long show tonight because we had some good topics tonight that I wanted to spend some more time on. So if you've got questions, I got answers. Maybe not good ones, but questions, topics, comments that you'd like for me to hit rapid fire here at the end of the show. Now is your time to do so. So go ahead and drop those in the chat right now. Right now. And I'll give you the rundown for what to expect coming up here at E2C Network, the Auburn Experience. Always keep in mind, Sundays and Wednesdays are your primary days for regularly scheduled content, as was the case tonight. And next, for regularly scheduled content, live stream, Auburn Family Night, live call-in show. We'll talk about anything and everything Auburn, the Auburn Experience. So please join us for that. And we'll be talking about, I'm sure, some more transfer portal stuff, things of that nature. There's plenty to talk about, folks. So join us this Wednesday at 8 p.m. Eastern time. Post-game show for Auburn versus Iowa State should be right after the game. There is a slight, and I mean minuscule, I might get the urge to go to this game. It is going to be an early one. I'm not too far away from it, but I also have some other plans that day that may prevent me from doing that. So just plan for it to be right after the game, but post-game show, Auburn versus Iowa State. That'll be a fun one to talk about for the holiday hoops giving event here in Atlanta. Always check out our links in the description, especially buying stuff from Alumni Hall, which we're an affiliate of. If you go through our link in our descriptions here on YouTube and buy something there for the holiday season, it'll help support them and us. All right, folks, any final questions, comments, topics, derogatory rebuttals? What do we got here? I'll go through some of your comments during the show. What positions are we going after in the portal tomorrow? I figure tight end, linebacker, quarterback. Yes. I honestly meant for us to have this discussion tonight in the show, but we were too jam-packed with stuff. Originally, I didn't think we had a lot to talk about in potpourri, but then I started kind of typing it out. I was like, oh man, I'm not going to have enough time to dive into the detail I want. So you answered your own question, Corey. I think quarterback, certainly with 2 spots open now with Hank Brown being out as a option. Speculatively, the portal opens tomorrow. If you're watching this tomorrow, it's already open. He'll likely be in there. We'll see how that works out for him. Linebacker and tight end, I think they need some experience and leadership there just to get them over the hump with these groups that are already there and the new ones coming in. I think that one is an option. Trying to think if there's anything else out there that might be. Running back might be 1-2, but I think those three that you mentioned are your most likely candidates there. And offensive lineman is always an option as well. All right, WT. Yes, I realized, and I hope that no one caught it. Thank you for once again catching my mistakes and reminding me of them constantly. I said Iowa State, and I meant Ohio. The Ohio State, as they like to call themselves. How pretentious does that sound? It's kind of, I'm sorry, I'm going to go on a rant for a second. It's kind of like the notion that Alabama fans will go, oh, little brother, right? Oh, we're big brother. And I'm like, as a big brother, you do not have to say anything if you truly have the big brother mentality. You just walk into a room and that's the way it is. That's how my brothers understand. I just walk into the room. I'm the big brother. I'll handle business. If you truly were, you wouldn't have to announce it when you come into a room. So anytime you see an Alabama fan or Ohio State fan say, the Ohio State or Alabama, little brother, big brother dynamic, just know they're overcompensating, and it's a pretty sad look on their part. Unbeaten Lake says, having Broom, Pettiford, Cardwell, Mazzara, Kelly, and Cheney is just not fair to play against. And I'm going to add on top of that a lot of other people that you didn't mention there. But those do seem to be the guys right now that are getting a lot of attention, and rightfully so. Guys like Dylan Cardwell, and who's doing a lot better statistical numbers this year. And Chris Moore, I know it doesn't seem like it, folks, but without them, there's a piece missing from that doesn't make this wheel turn as smoothly as it could. Don't forget about them either. I know you did. Just bring shout outs to some guys. Do we go after a place kicker? Well, listen, I'm no head coach for college football, but traditionally you really only want 2 scholarships at any one time for a kicker. Truthfully, you just probably want 1 and some walk-ons that you can elevate if you need to, or have a freshman that's redshirting, kind of like we've had before. That is going to be up to what is going on with Alex McPherson's health. I don't want to speculate. I mean, we heard some things out there about his gastrointestinal issues, and I could tell you this: it is the real deal. I'm not talking about. I don't know his prognosis for long-term health and stuff like that, but just having someone experience that I know very well, it can be debilitating at times. And we've seen how much weight he's lost. So that's going to be dependent upon that. I think also that we're very quick to jump on kids and think that they're not going to work out later down the road if they struggle early. So I'd like for us to be a patient with Towns, Magoo, and it looked like Ian, it's got the makeup of a pretty good kicker too. So I think we're pretty secure there. Just give him some time. Let's see what works out with some of the health issues for him, that being Alex McPherson. But nothing shocks me, but I wouldn't expect us to go after a kicker. Corey says, I would love to see Auburn win a natty in basketball and football in the same year. I've only seen Florida and Ohio State do it before. It's a pretty cool feat. Now I want to see it, the big 3, baseball as well. And I will tell you that Auburn is probably one of the better positioned schools to do that in all of sports. You got to think Florida probably used to be, at least, would be a good positioned well, because they're usually good in baseball. They're good in they have a history of being good in both football and basketball. Basketball more so right now than football. But I think Auburn's very well positioned for that. Probably trying to think of places like up north. I mean, Indiana football is getting pretty good. They're pretty good in basketball. And I think they've had a decent baseball team before. Anyway, a lot of the Southeastern teams you're going to see this. It's a cool thing to have happen. All right, folks, I think we're going to get out of here. More Q&A time coming up later this Wednesday. Stay tuned. We're kind of moving into the new schedule of stuff with the football not out there. There is still going to be plenty of football content here for us to discuss, if nothing else, on our open mic nights and the Auburn Experience podcast live recordings on Sunday. But we are going to be basketball heavy for a while, and it's my favorite. Well, one of my favorite times of the year. So thanks for hanging out tonight for the Q&A portion of our show and hanging out during the podcast recording. We appreciate you guys so much being part of our little family within the Auburn family. Until I talk to you again, War Eagle.